So economics is ultimately a way of thinking. It's the study of how people make choices. Economics is the study of how people make choices given scarce resources. And that is what our number 1 out of 6 in our economic way of thinking is. Okay, because of scarcity, people need to make choices. And what we're going to do with our economic way of thinking is we're going to build a system of logic, and we're going to stack logic on top of each other until we have a system where we can look at the way that people make choices. We can explain how they did, why they did, and in some cases we can even predict what people are going to do based on this system of thinking. So scarcity is the principle that we don't have enough resources to meet all of our goals. You'll actually see this presented differently in different textbooks. Sometimes you'll see scarcity as when we have unlimited wants, but we have limited resources, which I think is an okay definition, but there's some people that are kind of selfless, so we can imagine people not wanting stuff, so I don't love that definition. I like this definition that says we don't have enough resources to meet all of our goals. So even if you're really selfless, even if your goals are for other people, they're not for you, you still have goals, right? So if you're living for your own children or for your students, you still have goals for them. And especially as you'll find out when you're a teacher, you don't have enough resources to meet all of those goals. You don't have enough of you, which is usually you don't have enough time, which is going to be the main one. So that's called scarcity. And I'm really going to argue that scarcity is in almost every situation. If you find yourself choosing something, then there's a scarcity situation. There's some sort of resource that we don't have enough of to meet all of our goals. Sometimes our goals might be kind of shallow. They might be like, I want to go get some ice cream right now. That's a goal. Another goal could also be, I want a college degree at VCU. That's a goal. I want to have financial freedom in retirement when I'm old is a goal. I want to express my anger to this person who cut me off in traffic. Those are all goals. And we have scarcity in all of those things. If we want ice cream, then we have to choose to stop working and go get ice cream. That's a choice. If we want to cut somebody off in traffic because we're angry, we can't also be a responsible driver at the same time. People always do what brings them the most benefit at the least cost. And we say this always happens because it's just, it's an identity. It's by definition. You do the thing that you think is best in that situation. Even when people say, even for people who say harm themselves or do something self-destructive, even though that doesn't seem beneficial, the point is that they chose it because they thought that, for them, the benefits of doing that outweighed the cost for some reason. So we say that by definition. So that's point number 1. Because of scarcity, we make choices. Now, every choice has a cost. Would somebody tell me what kind of cost does every choice have? Does anyone remember this from their econ in high school? Magdalene, yes.
Oh, I didn't take the class, but
I'll say.
I did take economics once and failed it. So I guess one cost would be financial cost or opportunity cost, like it says on the slide. Like in order to get something, you have to give up something else usually.
There you go. Yeah, let's skip financial cost. That's something that happens down the line, but for the fundamentals of economic reasoning, we really focus on opportunity cost. In econ, we say choosing is refusing. Whenever you choose one thing, you refuse another thing. So if your goal is to express your anger to somebody who cut you off in traffic and you choose to try to cut that person off, you are refusing to be a safe driver. If you choose ice cream, you refuse a more healthy diet that day, and you refuse the time that you gave up doing that. Every choice has a cost. And we call it an opportunity cost because you've given up an opportunity. Your cost is not necessarily financial. The cost is that you, another way to say it is an opportunity cost is an opportunity lost. You give up a second opportunity. So let's go with, let's see, I'm going to call on a volunteer. Vanessa, would you be my volunteer, please? You just happen to be one of the 4 people I see in my Zoom pane here, so I'm going to call on you. So down there you have a picture of some shoes, and you have some slippers, and you're going out shopping somewhere, and you only have so much money, so you're going to choose one. Which would be your choice?
The slippers.
Okay, you're going to pick some cozy slippers. It is winter, very good. Okay, what is your opportunity cost then?
The other shoes.
Yeah, the shoes. Okay, so you choose the slippers and you give up the shoes. You've given up the opportunity to have some shoes. But let's say that your choice gets just a little bit more complicated. There's also a watch. What would be your first choice of these 3 things?
Probably still the slippers.
Still the slippers. Now what would be your second choice?
The watch.
Okay, so the watch has jumped up to number 2, which is going to put the shoes down at number 3. Would somebody tell me what is Vanessa's opportunity cost right here?
Would it be both the shoes and the watch?
Or just a watch?
That's why it's a trick question. It would not be both of them. And you see the operative word there on the slide. Opportunity choice is the second best choice that people give up when they make their best choice. So opportunity cost is always choice number 2. She picked the slippers, that's her choice. And then watch being number 2 is the opportunity cost. The shoes are just nothing. We don't even think about the shoes anymore. And that's one thing that our economic reasoning does for us. It makes our choices, it brings both our choices and the opportunity cost of our choices into stark relief, and really allows you to see exactly what it is you're giving up, and allows you to measure it when you make a choice. So choice number 3 is not opportunity cost. Neither is choice number 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, all the way on to infinity. We just forget those things. So why is that? I mean, don't you have a choice for a bunch of different things? Why would you only focus on choice number 2? Well, the reason is that you only get one thing with this choice. And so really you're only giving up one thing, right? Because you get one thing, it doesn't mean you are giving up infinity things. You were never going to get infinity things in the first place. So opportunity cost allows us to isolate what the true cost of our choice was. So let's make things really abstract, and let's say that you have a choice of going to a movie, or you have a chance of going ice skating at the mall, at the tiny little rink at the mall where the ice melts. This happened to me a few weeks ago. And the movie would bring you 10 units of happiness. The ice skating would bring you 8 units of happiness. If we're going to make that really abstract, you choose the movie, you're able to see, in that case, kind of just how much less happy the movie would make you. And sometimes we can measure this stuff in money by seeing how much people would pay for certain things. Okay, so every choice has a cost, and the main cost is the opportunity that you give up. Let's move on. So people respond predictably to incentives. Now, this is really the method of economics. In history, your method is analyzing documents and claims so you can come up with a narrative. That's their method. In geography, you're going to study push and pull factors and migration and place and location. That's how you're going to understand human behavior better. In sociology, you're going to study in-group and out-group behavior, so forth. In economics, we look at people's incentives. We say, everybody has some sort of a reward or consequence for the things that they do. And all we got to do is look at the incentives that people are offered, and that's going to give us great insight into their behavior. Another way to say this is that if you see people acting a certain way and you don't like it, the person who's looking at incentives will say, well, don't blame the people, blame the people who made the rules of the game. So let's give an example of incentives. You might have the incentive to speed in your car. Let me pause the share for a second so I can see you. Let's do a cost and benefit analysis. Let's look at the incentives going on here. What are some what's an incentive that you might have to speed, to break the speed limit?
It's
I heard you clear your throat and then nothing happened.
oh, sorry. To get somewhere faster.
Okay, so you got to get there fast. You're trying to go to class. Maybe a couple months from now, we might actually come to class. So you're going to get there faster. That's a benefit for speeding. Good. Are there any other benefits for speeding?
If someone is riding on you, you speed up to go to the next lane.
Yeah. Okay. So they're tailgating you. You got to get, you're in the far left lane. The person behind you is honking. You got to get out of their way. You got to speed up to get past the semi truck on I-95 coming up from Chester. Yes. That might be another reason you do that. What are some, maybe to impress the people you're driving with, to be cool? Nobody's impressed by that. Okay. What are some costs? Because our incentives are not just incentives to speed. We also have some incentives not to speed.
Did you get a speeding ticket?
Okay, you can get in trouble. Good.
You can get in a car accident.
You can get in a crash. Yeah. The other incentives not to speed.
Damages to your car.
Damage to your car. Yeah. You get in trouble with your parents is another thing that could happen. Okay, so do you know that way back in the day, like in the 1960s, before any of us were born, that cars did not even have seat belts? Did you know this? They weren't even built with them in there. And then they started including seat belts and saying, this is a way that you can keep yourself safe. But people didn't necessarily wear them. In fact, I remember even early in the 1980s when I was born, there were still some people that just like didn't wear their seat belts. I don't think anybody just doesn't wear their seat belt now. But I think in the late 1970s, they made laws that said you must wear your seat belt. And their goal was to prevent injuries from car crashes. And so they made laws that said that you have to wear your seatbelt, and the police would pull you over and ticket you, click it or ticket if you didn't. What do you think is the effect of a seatbelt law on people's incentives to speed? Now think for a second. You have benefits to speeding, which largely have to do with getting places. And you have costs to speeding, which largely have to do with safety or getting in legal trouble. What does having a seatbelt on do to your cost of speeding? Does it increase it or decrease it? Not the money cost.
I think it would increase it.
I feel like it increases it.
Okay, it increases the cost. So the cost of speeding is either crashing or getting in trouble. Now you do the seatbelt so you don't get in trouble with the cops, but it decreases your cost in terms of safety, right? Because if you get into a crash, you're going to be safer with that seatbelt on, right? So what does that do to the cost of speeding? It lowers the cost of speeding, doesn't it? Because before, if you have no seatbelt, you get in a crash, you're likely going to get killed. If you're wearing a seatbelt, you get in a crash, you're not going to be hurt as bad. So the cost of speeding decreases. So using this logic, what would we think if this new law decreases the cost of speeding for people? What are people going to do?
Wear a seatbelt.
Well, they're going to wear a seatbelt and they're going to speed. And this is exactly what happened, as a matter of fact. In the 1970s, when they made the you must click it or ticket laws, they actually saw more speeding and therefore more crashes, more people getting injured in crashes as a result of the speed belt law. Now, that seems counterintuitive, but our economic thinking, by looking at people's incentives, could have told them ahead of time that that was going to happen. By the way, people did get in more crashes, but the crashes were less fatal because the seatbelt actually did save them. So if you're wearing a seatbelt law is likely to make more people crash and more people get minor injuries, but fewer people actually die. And the statistics bear that out. That's actually what happened. So looking at a similar incident with incentives, let's take a ski slope. Some ski slopes require helmets, other ski slopes do not. using the same logic about the cost of skiing dangerously, what can we predict about ski slopes that do require helmets versus those who don't? Let's say that your ski slope all of a sudden says we're going to require helmets now. What can we predict about crashes and injuries?
They'll probably go down because people are using safety measurements.
So it is true that fatal injuries go down, but minor injuries and crashes, those actually go up if you require a helmet at a ski slope. Ski slopes that have helmet laws tend to have more crashes and more. And why is this?
Because people are going down faster.
Yeah, people ski and snowboard more recklessly when they have a helmet on because they feel safer. They're more likely to crash. Of course, just like the seatbelts, the helmet actually does protect you if you get in a crash. So I do recommend still wearing that helmet when you go skiing or snowboarding. Okay, so that's the way that incentives works. Okay, let's go on to number 4. Economic systems influence individual choices and incentives. Another word for an economic system is a rule. So how people cooperate is governed by written and unwritten rules. As rules change, incentives change, and behavior changes. So I wanted to use the coronavirus era as an example of rules. Is it the rule that you have to wear a mask inside a building at VCU? I don't see any heads nodding.
I honestly don't know. I feel like it should be.
Yeah.
Okay.
It is the rule. You must wear a mask inside. And actually, when you go inside the library, they're going to have a rule, and the student center, they have a rule that you have to have the check at the door through your phone where you check in and make sure that you're safe. But yes, it is a rule that you wear a mask inside a VCU building right now. What about wearing a mask outside? Do you have to wear a mask outside VCU?
Yeah, you're still supposed to.
I don't think it's a rule. No, I took the training. Unless I'm really wrong, but no, I don't think it's a rule. So you don't have to wear a mask outside. Do people wear masks outside?
I see both. Like I see people wearing them and not wearing them while
Yeah.
you're on campus.
I think the majority of people that I see on campus are wearing a mask. So the first is an example of a written rule, a formal rule that you must wear the mask inside. Now, people wear the mask outside because of an informal or an unwritten rule. This is a social rule. This is something that we might actually study in sociology, is that when there's a lot of people around you wearing a mask outside, that makes you say, oh, I should probably be doing that too. I know it has that effect on me. When I always want to take my mask, I just knock my glasses off. Wow. I just get so into this teaching econ. Gets me going. I get so excited to take my mask off when I step outside the building, but then I see other people not wearing their masks say, you know what, I'm just going to keep this on so I can be a good citizen and keep everybody in the area safe. Okay, so in economics, everything isn't just people doing what they want. There's also all these rules and systems around there that influence their incentives, and when they influence their incentives, they influence their choices. And this is all about choices, isn't it? Any questions about systems and incentives? We're going to study economic systems later on in the course. Okay. Voluntary trade creates wealth. I actually like saying this: in a voluntary trade, both sides expect to benefit. There are some instances where people expect to benefit or they take a risk and their trade does not work out. But in general, trade creates wealth. People expect to benefit in a voluntary trade. So sorry I keep sharing and unsharing my screen, but I really want to be able to see all the students. I'm going to propose you another little conundrum here. If two people trade, they both expect to benefit. how can I say that confidently? I mean, I don't know you, you don't know me. How can I see you going to the store and trade money for an item, or I see two people trading something, or your students in elementary school are going to trade food in the cafeteria. How can I look at that and say they're benefiting, or they expect to benefit from that? Why can I be so sure? What would happen if one of them did not expect to benefit?
They wouldn't trade then, right?
Yeah, exactly. Then there would be no trade. Either they would never bother talking about it in the first place, or one student would say, I'll trade you my sandwich for your cookie. And of course, that's a terrible deal. Elementary students would never do that. They'd say, no, you can't have my cookie for your sandwich. And the trade wouldn't take place. So in economics, economists are almost unanimous encouraging trade between individuals and even encouraging trade between nations, even though politicians sometimes don't like international trade as much, and sometimes voters don't either. Economists say, let people trade. Trade is the way that wealth happens. Let me give you an example. Actually, just a really kind of silly example. Let's say that you are a carpenter. You're a blacksmith, like at Colonial Williamsburg, and you live in a hardwood forest, but you don't have any metal. And then over here, you're a carpenter who lives on an iron ore mine. Carpenter can't do anything with the ore. Blacksmith can't do anything with the wood. What can you do? Well, obviously you trade. And so now the carpenter has wood to work with, and the blacksmith has iron to work with. Just that voluntary trade has generated wealth. Now they're going to be able to do good work. And we're going to play a game about that, but not today because we don't have time to do that. We don't have time to do it in the online session and still get through this. But look at what I've done up here on the slide. So people specialize in what they do best and trade for the rest. It's another way to say it. So this is you. Up in the top corner, you're going to be a teacher. And then down in the other corner, you have somebody working at the grocery store over at the Kroger on Broad Street, probably. And, it wouldn't do you a lot of good to go up to the guy at Kroger with all these groceries here and say, I will teach you a unit about the Industrial Revolution in exchange for these groceries. Guy doesn't want that. But we have the medium of money, which we're going to learn also later on in the course, which is a medium of exchange by which these people ultimately trade. All of us in our economy with our different jobs that we specialize in at the grocery store, at the school, at the gas station, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, we're all trading with each other through the medium of money. We do what we do best and trade for the rest. Okay, last one in this economic way of thinking. The consequences of our choice lie in the future. Now, this one is kind of a catch-all for a few different concepts. So bear with me because you kind of need to know 3 applications of this concept. So the first of them is that there's risk. So people make rational choices based on what they think will be best for them, but they don't necessarily know. So a lot of you have said reasons why you like coming to VCU. And, when you make a choice for a school, you're 17, you don't know. You think that the VCU environment will be what you like and so on and so forth. But what if you have a really terrible experience here? You just don't know. What if your parents, what if you wanted to go to Virginia Tech, but your parents said, no, we live in the Richmond area. You can't go all the way across the state. You have to stay here. And you're angry and you think VCU is going to be terrible. But in the end, it turns out to be a great experience. You make the best friends of your life. You have great professors. It connects you with super opportunities, right? So we don't really know what's going to happen in the future. So what we try to do is we try to mitigate risk. We try to gain information, and gaining information decreases risk, which decreases the cost of our choices, which allows us to maximize the benefits of the choices that we're making and therefore reducing the costs. You see how this is all connected, right? Okay, so we can't influence things that happen in the past. We forget the past, we move on to the future. The idea that you're trying to change the past is called the sunk cost fallacy. and you are going to avoid the sunk cost fallacy. Let me give you an example of sunk cost fallacy. So where I'm from in Northwest Indiana, there is a reenactment thing that happened every year called the Feast. And everybody liked to go to there and listen to the fife and drum corps and eat the food and watch the reenactments. And it was nerdy, but it was fun. There was nothing else to do in Northwest Indiana, so that's what we did. And one day, the day before the feast, it rained and rained and rained and rained. And it changed all the area into just a muddy bog. Now, we had already bought tickets at $8 a pop, and with a family of 6, that was $48. This is a while ago, so the money was worth a bit more back then. I mean, $48 is a lot of money. And so we were looking forward to this cold, wet, miserable day where we're slopping around in the bog, and nobody wanted to go. And we said, we don't want to go. But my mom said, we have to go, because why?
Because you'd already put the cost in. You paid for the ticket.
We already bought the tickets, right? We've spent the money. We've got to go do it. Now, what would the economics student who knows Principle 6, the consequences of our choice lie in the future, tell my mom in this instance?
You're young kids, you might want to play in the mud or anything like that.
Yeah, we're assuming here that we didn't want to be in the mud, but yeah, that's there. In that case, maybe the kids would have liked it, but my mom and dad it would have been even worse on them because we would have gotten everything all muddy. Okay, what's the choice that we're doing? We're doing the sunk cost fallacy. How would I explain that this was the sunk cost fallacy? Let me just use the definition of it. Oh boy, I'm gonna have to call on somebody.
Is it?
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Mag.
I'm just taking a shot in the dark, but it's because you've already like sunk the money into things, so you feel like your incentive is that you have to do the thing because you've paid for it or put the work or time or effort in.
Right, but you actually don't. That's the fallacy. So the fallacy is the feeling that because you already put in the work or the money, you have to do it. Economic reasoning tells us that what you should do is try to get your maximum future benefits. So no matter how much work or money you've put into something, you look into the future and say, if I go to the feast, is it going to make me happier or sadder? You say, well, I don't want to go. I'm going to be wet and miserable. Well, then don't go. Okay. That is, that's the application of economic thought right there. My wife heard that this particular TV show on Hulu was good. So she said, let's watch this. And we watched the first episode or two. And I said, you know, dear, I kind of like this show, but it's 6 seasons long. I don't want to watch 6 seasons of this. And it's not going to really benefit us that much unless we watch all 6 seasons because it's plot driven. So let's just stop. So we stopped. Okay. That was me using this principle, saying looking out and saying in the future, this is not going to make me any better. Just because I've watched a couple episodes doesn't mean that I need to keep on watching it. Learn to be a quitter, students. If something is not worth it, stop doing it. If you're reading a book and the book is terrible, there's a million other books to read. Put that book down and just get a different book. If the movie is terrible, stop watching the movie. There's a bunch of other applications. Actually, can somebody tell me what's another application of something that you kind of feel like you should stick out, but if you're being really rational, you probably shouldn't?
I'll use my instance. So when I came to VCU, I was a bio major, and I wanted.
We've lost your.
After like a semester. Oh, I'm sorry. Can you not hear me?
When you came, you were a bio major. That's the last thing we heard.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. So I was a bio major and I wanted to become a pediatrician, but after a semester, I was like, I'm not sure if this is something I want to do, but I was going to stick it out because, I was like, well, I'm already here. I already took these classes, but then I figured now I'm an elementary education major. So now I figured I'd kind of enjoy my life more if I do something I actually enjoy.
That's a great example. These questions can be really tricky because, so the classes that you took in the past, those are not necessarily a sunk cost because they can still benefit you in the future, because if you switch to elementary ed, then you have to take more classes in order to get your degree, right? But at the same time, you looked ahead and you said, my life is going to be better for the next 50 years if I'm a teacher instead of a pediatrician, so that's what I'm going to choose. It's a great example. Okay, so the upshot there is whenever you're looking at your choices, make sure that the things that you're choosing still can benefit you in the future, and you're not just trying to dig up the past because you can't do it. Okay, one more implication of this is sometimes our choices can lead to unintended consequences. And we gave you an example of that already with the car seat belts and with the skiing, right? That's where we thought that we were going to accomplish something, reduce injuries from crashes, but instead we got more injuries from crashes. That was an unintended consequence. But of course, you know, you still should have a seatbelt or a helmet because they'll be less fatal. So we need to, unintended consequences may be unintended, but they should be predicted. They are predictable if you use your economic logic, which should allow you to reason through all this stuff. That's where we're going to pause today. Okay, so we didn't get to the syllabus, did we? We're going to have to do it next time. It's up there on Canvas. I published the course on Canvas today, so it's there. Let me show you the assignment. And the syllabus is up there too, so you can look at it. We will go over it. We will go over it next time. So there's our syllabus. Here's the mandatory information from VCU that all students need to do. You're going to do down here, week 1, economic way of thinking, scarcity decision making. These are your readings. I have 3 readings for you, a chapter in a textbook and 2 little articles. All the things you need to do are here under week 1 activities. You're going to read these 3 articles. You're going to do problems and applications, numbers 3 through 7 in the textbook. I am not going to make you buy a textbook this year, students. All this stuff is just, I'm just going to post on the internet, okay? It's going to save you money. You're welcome. Make sure you do the problems and applications section. Sometimes students do the wrong section. Read It's Never Too Early and answer these questions about It's Never Too Early. And then read Let's Get Students to Prioritize and answer these 2 questions. You can upload this assignment to the website. I have turned on turnitin.com. Are y'all familiar with turnitin.com yet? It scans the whole internet and it scans all of Canvas to see if the stuff that you turn in is exactly the same as something that somebody else turned in. So its main thing to do is to stop plagiarism. I've used it when I was a high school teacher to actually help students improve their writing. Don't be scared about it. I'm going to show you some of it. I'm going to show you the inside of it later so you can see what it is. But don't get answers for stuff online because the software will find it. Are there any questions in the last couple minutes? The stuff that's for your homework is pretty much what we talked about in the economic way of thinking. In the last couple minutes, just let me tell you a couple of things about.
Excuse me.
Oh,
sorry.
Yeah,
I did have a quick question. When did you say the homework was due? I missed that part.
Oh, I did not say that at all. It's going to be due before class next Tuesday.
Okay,
So
thank you.
all your assignments are due the minute before class starts on a Tuesday. All of our meetings are going to be 3:30. Okay, it's going to be 3:30 on Tuesdays. We're not going to have a Thursday meeting, and the course is going to be online. VCU, if VCU goes back to in-person class, I won't bring us back necessarily immediately. I'll bring us back on our own good time. I do want to bring us back eventually, but we're not going to hurry. Note that you do get extra credit if you miss 2 or fewer classes being these online meetings. So please plan on coming to class. I do expect people to be here. I will try to make it as participatory as possible. And as long as you don't miss more than a couple classes, you'll get extra credit. I'll go over this more later. We will have a couple tests, but they're going to be not as much of your grade as they would normally be on an in-person class. And you can turn in work late. It's 25% off if it's up to a week late, but after that it's a 0. So don't be really, really, really late with assignments. Here's a schedule of topics, and there's our class meeting dates. And I will go over the syllabus a little more slowly next time, but I wanted to at least touch on it just there. You can look at it in Canvas. Are there any more questions?
I have a question.
Sure, Logan.
Where are these PowerPoints going to be found within Canvas?
I'll just put them on this week of class. Yeah, so there should only be 1 week visible to you right now, and I have not yet uploaded the PowerPoint, so I'll do that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, you all are free to go. If you have any more questions to ask me, I'll stick around for a minute, but otherwise, I'll look forward to seeing your work.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
Magdalene. So you're into metal then?
Yeah, for the most part. I like 80s goth and 90s metal. It's pretty eclectic.
Are you good enough?
I have a couple.
Can I ask you a question right quick?